Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. Got a special report today. Usually, I do a lot of writing reports lately, and I've kind of been just using the video reports for interviews. But I wanted to talk about gold at the start, and then I want to go into why I think that exploration is so important. And it's not just important for the junior explorers, but also for the developers and even the mining companies. And I think a lot of times it's maligned in the industry, but it's never been more crucial. And so I wanted to get into that today. I'm going to start out with a sort of outline or a talk about gold. And I'm going to get right into it. I even have some notes ready for you. First of all, look at this beautiful chart in gold. Bottom last year. This is a 52-week chart of the futures market. And as you can see, it bottomed here at about 1826. Been on a beautiful move ever since. And on Friday and Thursday and Friday of last week, it made two new record highs. And we're getting close to the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates. And so let's get right into it. As I said, gold made an important breakout prior to the Fed meeting, which is in a couple days here. And they're going to be entering into a rate cutting cycle that looks pretty baked in the cake. The technical indicators are extremely bullish for gold, as are the supply and demand fundamentals. It's encouraging to see that gold is trading strongly during this U.S. trading. I've noticed this recently, and what that suggests to me is that a lot of this move you see on the screen here was the BRICS nations and investors in the East driving up the price of gold. But I think now we're starting to see inflows into the Western ETFs that is quite bullish. I think they've got very good fund flows that we'll be hearing more about as they do their reporting. I find that it's a very strong bullish sign that Westerners are starting to get involved. And I wanted to talk about, I made some predictions earlier in the year. As you can see here, where the bullseye is, or the arrow or crosshairs, and I was noticing this basing period here that lasted about 3 months, and it had about a $100 range to it. And back here in February, I was writing reports that I thought that this basing was going to lead to a big breakout. And then we had that in early March, and it went on a nice run from, let's say, it broke above that crucial 2100 range, and then got up to 2400. It had a very brief consolidation and then basing in around here, and then had another run. But this second base here is of particular note to me. It started in around late May and lasted till early July. And what I noticed here is that the bulk of the basing was in a very tight range. And it was about half of the length of this earlier in the year basing. And so the basing is becoming shorter in time frame and also narrower in the range. And so, of course, we had another big breakout. And then I was noticing that, look at this beautiful series of higher lows and higher highs. I follow this these trends very closely, basing and lower lows and or higher lows and higher highs. And so this is a very bullish indicator to me. And then we had a third important basing period in 2024. And you notice that, well, I certainly noticed and documented this in my reports, that look at how tight the range is now. Now you're only down to about a $50 range in these basing periods. And this one is the shortest base of all of 2024. And now we had another important breakout. And now this got us over 2,600 on Friday. Again, that's on the futures. And so we're seeing a very strong series of bases that are getting shorter in time frame and tighter in range. And then we've also got this nice trend of higher lows and higher highs. So from a technical perspective, the basing and the trend is very, very bullish. So as this is happening, as the price of gold is in a very powerful bull market, we're seeing some fantastic things in the big gold miners. The two big gold miners that I've featured in the report for months now is as the choices for the big miners is Agnico Eagle and Alamos Gold. So why do I pick those over the Barricks and the Newmonts and the other mid-tier producers? It's because of the key fundamentals that I look for in a gold miner. And those are, first of all, both of these companies are making records in free cash flow. In the case of Agnico Eagle, they had in the second quarter, they had their third quarter of record free cash flow consecutively. And a lot of that has to do with, well, let's take a look here. In the first quarter, January, February, and March, they had the average price of gold was in a very strong, one of the best quarters ever. But then that was surpassed by the second quarter. So in the second quarter, you had an average price of 23.50, which was the all-time best quarter ever. And this is what led to record free cash flow for both Agnico Eagle and Alamos. Now, I would also point out that the third quarter looks to be going to average a couple $100 better. So I'm expecting blowout quarters for both Agnico Eagle and Alamos. So free cash flow is a number one factor I look for in mining, gold mining companies. If you're not making record free cash flow, you're going to be in, that's the separator between these gold miners, the big ones, and their peers. Now, another thing I look for is, okay, so you've got these companies making record free cash flow. The next thing they need to do is be able to increase their production and bring down their costs. Now, in the case of Alamos and Agnico Eagle, they're already producing gold for well under the industry average, which is about $1,400 per ounce. And so when you're producing it at less than 1,400 and gold is at 2,600, you're making a lot of free cash flow. But can you keep that going? And how you keep that going is by increasing your production. And in an amazing way, both of these companies are able to reduce their costs even more. So they're already outperforming their peers on the cost basis. But in the case of Alamos, they're going to be bringing their cost to less than their average cost of producing an ounce of gold down to less than $1,000 per ounce of gold production. So both of these companies are beating their peers on all of the key metrics. When it comes to increasing their production, very few of the big gold miners are actually able to increase their production. Both of these companies are doing that. Both of these companies are bringing down their costs, and both of these companies are making record free cash flow. So, on the fundamentals, these companies are doing a fantastic job of operating as gold mining companies. Now, how does that translate into the market? Well, both of these companies are trading at record highs. They're, where a lot of gold miners are still well below their record highs, both of these companies are making new record highs. So not only are they outperforming on the operations side of the business, but they're also outperforming in the stock performance. And that's why they're my number one and number two. I have a hard time deciding which is number one and which is number two. Of course, when it comes to size, Agnico Eagle is one of the big three of the major mining companies. You've got Barrick, Newmont, and Agnico Eagle. As far as that goes, I think they're by far outperforming and will continue to outperform their immediate peers. But then you've got Alamos that is increasing their production. They're not as well known amongst generalist investors, but when they bring their cost down to less than $1,000 an ounce, I think that's the kind of thing that could make them an exceptional performer relative to their peers. Okay. So another thing that they're doing that separates them from their peers is that they're showing how great gold mining can be when you are in a gold bull market and you are exceptional at operations. And the operations side is, the report card on that is your records and free cash flow. And again, both of these companies are doing that because they're exceptionally talented operations companies. They do takeovers at very good prices for the company, and they do those at really opportune times. And that's when it comes to comparing industry to industry, with gold doing what it's doing and where it's heading, I think we're going to see $3,000 an ounce gold. It's really difficult to see any other industry with that kind of free cash flow growth. And this is one of the factors that I think is going to bring the generalist investor, institutions, smart money, big wealthy investors, family offices into the gold mining space, because let's face it, how many industries can see that kind of margin growth? First of all, that kind of margin and that kind of margin growth is getting very, very difficult to find any other industries where you're seeing that. And so they are really highlighting how good the gold mining space can be when you are an exceptional at producing gold and doing it at a healthy margin that gets you into record free cash flow. What I've seen so far is that I think that especially when it comes to the Western investors, that they've only started to really start dipping their toes into the gold market, gold itself and the gold stocks. So when they do that, they tend to, first of all, they're getting into gold through the ETFs. They're getting into gold through things like Agnico Eagle, Newmont, and Barrick. Those are the big three. They tend to do those first. Alamos. Uh, the more astute investors are starting to look down the food, generalist investors are starting to look down the food chain, and that's where they would find a company like an Alamos. But I think the next big trend is that I see coming is that generalist investors will continue seeing the light when it comes to gold, the gold light, if you will, and that will make them want to get more involved with gold stocks because that's where the real torque is. Right now, when you're looking at the value of gold in the ground for a miner, for a developer, for an explorer, although gold is making record highs, the valuations of the companies relative to what they have in the ground and where they are on the Lassonde curve has really, it's trading at record lows. And so there's tremendous torque. It's like a coiled spring being for the gold stocks. So I think that we're going to start that spring to be released down the gold stock food chain. And so what I mean by down the gold stock food chain is your gold mine developers and your gold explorers. And I'm not just talking about, investors sort of blanket covering gold mine developers and gold explorers. I think that the ones that will see the best performance are those with high quality projects, whether it's an explorer with an important discovery or a developer. And in a lot of cases, again, these companies are being priced like gold is half its value. And you're seeing record low valuations on the metrics that you would usually see for these kind of companies in a gold bull market. They haven't even really even got off the canvas yet. The big ones have, your Agnico Eagles and your Alamoses have, but going down the food chain, it's remarkable how good a quality the projects there are that are being valued like gold's in a bear market, not in a generational bull market, which is what I think we're in now. And so I think there's a powerful trend going to develop and to bring these companies out of those historical low valuations relative to the metrics that are important, whether you're a developer or whether you're an explorer. Another important thing is, I think that generalist investors are going to start coming into the gold stocks and down the food chain in a bigger way. But what they're going to find when they're looking for those is that the menu of high quality developers and explorers is very, very small. And these companies, generalist investors are, they invest in crypto and things and big cap tech stocks. And one big cap tech stock has a valuation that exceeds all of the mining stocks combined, whether you're talking about the majors all the way down to the developers and explorers. And so these valuations are very tiny, and the amount of stock out on these companies is very tiny compared to what they're used to in the Wall Street stocks, I call them. And so when the generalist investor starts coming into these, because these are such coiled springs and there is so few of them with high quality projects, and that they have these small valuations and these small share structures compared to the Wall Street stocks, that when the generalist investors finds their way, we can see explosive moves in high quality developers and explorers with important discoveries. And you know what? One of the big arguments that I have for the bullishness, this extreme bullishness that I have for gold and other metals, is that the supply chain is very, very weak. Now, when you're in a record prices for gold, usually that means that gold miners will increase their production into that stronger market. They would love to be doing that, but they can't. And the reason that they can't is because their own supply chain is broken. They're seeing the head grades at mines in decline. They can't replace what they're mining from the old mines with new mines. And therefore, this is a long-term cycle that the supply chain is broken. And that's why they can't react to these higher gold prices. Most of them, my top picks like Nico Eagle and Alamos, are increasing their production. But you look at other big gold miners and they're struggling. It looks like the average production in gold mining has peaked and it's going into a long-term decline. And that's happening while prices are at record prices. So, in that kind of an environment, every gold miner wants to increase their production, but they can't. And the reason that they can't is because there's been such a long-term underinvestment in exploration and new mine development, because frankly, until earlier this year, the gold stocks had been in a long-term bear market, even though gold was getting stronger. And so when you underinvest in exploration and you underinvest in new mine development, you have the makings of a long-term, and I'm talking 10 to 20-year supply, a broken supply chain. And that's another key reason that, you got strong demand coming in from the BRICS nations, the central bankers in the BRICS nations. The Chinese and the Indians are hoarding gold. Now you've got the Western investors starting to get into gold as well, and they're all taking a lot of physical gold off the market, and they're holding on to it for dear life. And so you've got that combination of a broken supply chain and super strong fundamentals. And I'm actually holding my fist up here like when I was a boxer as a kid, because it's like the 1-2 punch. You've got that beautiful combination that is going to drive gold a lot higher. And the big story for gold for me is that we are heading into the world needing to go back to the gold standard. And this argument is all based on the death spiral of debt. The Western countries have, for a long time, 50 years, been building their economies on debt. And that debt has gotten to a frightening level. In the United States, it's now 35 trillion, over 35 trillion. And the interest on that debt is over $1 trillion. So now it's becoming one of the largest expenditures of the government, and it's consuming a significant portion of the income from taxes. So, and you've got two candidates that are going to, that have already proven that they are big spenders. So they're going to continue to grow the debt, and the interest on that debt, servicing that debt, is now becoming a huge problem. And so in the United States, you got that death spiral of debt, but it's a worldwide epidemic. In all the world, debt is now at 300 and almost $320 trillion of debt. This is not sustainable. And the only way you're going to be able to fight that problem is by going back on the gold standard. When the world was in a gold standard, it forced discipline on the politicians that they couldn't just print money and debt like it was going out of style, because they had to have it was linked to gold. And we need to go back on that gold standard. And my prediction is that because we're going back on a gold standard, that we're going to see $20,000 an ounce gold within 10 years. And a lot of people say, oh, that's a crazy prediction. The world is going to go to hell in a handbasket. No, it's not. What's going to happen is discipline is going to go back onto the politicians and the central bankers of the world, because we're going back on a gold standard. I think nothing could be better than to see gold at $20,000 an ounce again, because what that would tell you is that discipline is going back onto the central bankers and the politicians, and they're not going to be able to continue this ludicrous growth in the debt, which is just so harmful for the long-term economy. We're at a crucial juncture in the world economy, that we're going to be transitioning from the economies of the world being built on debt and money printing and dilution of the money, and we're going to go back to the soundest form of money, which is gold, and it's going to back up the debt in a more significant way. And part of the reason that I make that 20,000 prediction within 10 years is because currently only about 1% of the world's debt is backed up by gold. And I think it should be 10, 20, 30, 40% should be backed, that debt should be backed up by gold. And if that were to happen, we go back to 20,000, even much higher than 20,000 an ounce. And another thing that you're going to see happen on the way, we're already seeing happen, nobody's paying attention to it, but as these central bankers of the world start hoarding more gold and they start backing their debt up with gold, they're going to start to realize that gold is a much better currency to do international trade in. Why would you want to get a fiat currency when you can get the soundest money for your transaction? All these fiat currencies are being devalued. The purchasing power is consistently being devalued, and gold is going up. So you've got the purchasing power of the fiat currencies, and so this makes for very difficult international trade. And I think what's going to make that a lot easier is you're going to see things like countries trading their wheat and their oil and their copper and their things that they need to make stuff. And they're going to start doing that in gold transactions instead. And as that happens, gold just goes higher and higher and higher in value. And so now where I get my most excitement, as you can probably see, I'm pretty excited about gold, but where I see the big breakdown in the gold supply chain is when it comes to the explorers. So everybody's heard the expression that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So the weakest link in the gold supply chain is the explorers. And what happens with the explorers has an effect all the way up to the major miners. And here's how it happens. If you don't have enough success with important discoveries, and that is relative to the money that goes into exploration and the skills of the explorers. So if you don't have enough of that, then you're not going to have enough developers that are developing the new mines. Okay. And if you don't have enough new mine developers, then the majors struggle to be able to replace their old mines with new mines. Gold miners don't do a lot of exploration. All of their exploration is really around their old mines, and that has its limits to it. And what is needed is for developers to have success so that the majors can then come down and buy out the developers to then replace their old mines with new mines. But what we have now in the failure to communicate, as that great Guns N' Roses song says, is we do kind of have a civil war. That's where the civil war is in mining, and people think that you can have all these wonderful things in life without mining. It doesn't work that way, folks. But so you need these explorers to have success in order for there to be more developers that can build the new mines. And so whether you're looking from the major miners that are struggling to increase their production, are challenged to replace their old mines with their new mines, then you follow it down the food chain. So now there's very few companies in the developer stage because there was very few successes with the explorers. So the explorers get the short shift, even by gold bulls. I hear some of these experts in mining, and they just denigrate and malign the gold explorers. Gold exploration is a tough business. I've been doing it for 30 years, and it's tough. It's not easy to go out there and poke holes into the ground and make important discoveries. And so, these, and sometimes I find the big experts, if you will, in the mining business that love to malign the explorers. They don't realize how important the explorers are in this food chain that I talked about. We need more exploration success. And there's just a very small, because it's hard. Exploration is hard. You got fluctuations in the gold price. So that has an ebb and flow of money going into exploration. And because it's been this way for so long, that's why there's not enough developers out there and not enough exploration success. Other things that make it difficult is it's never been as expensive. It's never taken as long to permit new mines, to permit exploration. Everything has gone up. All of the well-known districts of the world have been pretty well picked over. And so you have to go into other, less well-known jurisdictions where there's not as much geoscience put onto it. And this is why the explorers, that they get so much denigrated by these so-called experts and new arrivals into the gold mining space that are doing shows like I do and they like to use the explorers as a punching bag. And I think a lot of that is because a lot of these newcomers and the old timers that use the explorers as punching bags, they don't really have the exploration experience. I've spent 30 years as an explorer. I had, some of the best mentors in the business. My geophysics mentor, was the Anglo Gold's world exploration manager. This guy is extremely talented. He taught me what I know about geophysics. I had a great geochemist as a geochemical expert helping me with how to use geochemistry in exploration. I had many great mentors in geology, and this these people, we have a people problem too. A lot of my mentors are sadly have passed away or are retired now or are on the twilight of their experience, and so we have a lost generations in exploration people. And so we need more success in the exploration, and it kind of annoys me when I hear these old time experts and these new entrants sort of bashing on exploration. And I saw that back in the early 2000s. That's why I actually started reporting on industry. I had spent from 1993 to 2005 working in exploration and for mining companies. And then in 2005, I kind of got quite annoyed by the fact that most of the commentators on the industry were what I call stock jockeys. They just really wanted to promote stocks. They didn't really want to promote projects. And part of the reason is that they couldn't promote projects is because they don't have the exploration experience. And so I've been doing exploration for 30 years as a professional. And that's why I got into the reporting, was because I just saw so many of the experts at the time, and now they're the old time experts that really love to malign the exploration. And, I hate to tell you folks, if you want to be investing in developers, how do you get developers without exploration success? And if you like mining companies, how do you get production growth and if you don't, and replacing your old mines with new mines if you don't have exploration success? So I have made a decision that I want to start talking more about exploration in my reports, because I see that we're in a wonderful situation for explorers. And so I'm going to start with, let me get this out of the way here. Oh, I just pushed the wrong button. So hold on a second here. I'm going to get my screen all situated, because I never seem to get these things right. Let's see, how do I? Okay, oh, there we go. All right. So, Goliath Resources. This is my number one gold discovery pick, and I want to show you something really cool here. Look at this. Take a look at this gold sample from a surface sample. Look at all that gold, leafy gold, big, visible, beautiful visible gold. Now, guess where this came from? This came from a surface sample that they took while they were preparing to drill what is called their jackpot target. And they're going to be drilling underneath this. And to see this kind of visible gold at the surface, it's very exciting, because this didn't come from outer space. It came from below. And I can't wait to see them start drilling below that. So now I want to scroll down here and show you a couple of really important news releases. So they had done they started out drilling 15,000. The plan was to drill 15,000 meters this drilling season. And then they got approached to do a $6.5 million financing, or sorry, 7.36. And one of the key investors in that was a strategic Singapore-based global commodity group. So then they closed on 6.5 million of that, and the rest of that's been closed on. And then they got approached because there is a lot of demand for this for financing. So then they did a $12.75 million financing, and Rob McEwen, who has done two previous investments into the company, put another $1 million worth of financing into this $12.75 million financing. So then just last week, they announced that Larry Childress is doing 1 million shares of this, and they're closing on financings, and it's all happening as we're speaking. But Larry Childress is a very interesting person. Of course, he's not as well known as Rob McEwen, but he's a very wealthy guy who is a geoscientist and has made all his fortune in work using his geoscience skills. And Larry has made a lot of money in mining stocks. And he's known to be a very selective in the companies he picks, but then he goes in big. And so he started to make his first investment, bought 1 million shares of that financing. So I think that's about $1.25 million investment. And so they're doing all these financing, and they're getting strong demand because of the quality of the results that they've had out, the early results, and because of that demand to help finance the company, they're able to go from a 15,000 meter drill program to a 36,000 meter drill program. Folks, a lot of times investors like Rob McEwen, Larry Childress, Eric Sprott, Crescat Capital, these groups and individuals, they do a lot of homework before they do financings into these companies. And they're kind of leading the show for you, and they're doing a lot of that homework for you. And I'm going to show you a little bit about how I go about doing my homework. So here I am on the company's presentation. There's their forward-looking statements that you want to read. Here's their board, and Quinton Henney is part of Crescat, and that's why they've gotten involved. Roger Rosmus, capital markets guy. This company has drilled a lot of meters, and still they only have 120 million shares out, 151 fully diluted. If all of these warrants got exercised that are in the money, by the way, that would give them millions more for exploration. Now let's scroll down here. I want to get past all this stuff. I want to get into the guts of the exploration for you. So you see this gold triangle here. This is the Golden Triangle of British Columbia. It's a very prolific region known for high-grade deposits, big mines that are very profitable. You can see these yellow dots here: Eskay Creek, Galore Creek, all these various different mines. And this is where you see all these reds, pretty much this whole corner, the southern tip of the Golden Triangle is where Goliath has pretty much dominates that part of the Golden Triangle. Okay, so on this slide, what you're going to see here, this red line is very important because it's a contact between two key rock packages. And why it's so important is that this big structural corridor here, you go about 3 or 4 kilometers on either side of that red line, they call it. And that's where all the important mines are in the Golden Triangle. And you can see that as you get through here, this is where they're in close proximity. The Sherbet discovery is over here, and they highlight that it's only about 7 kilometers from a road that goes down to Kitsault. Also, they're very close proximity to where you can get barge access down here and ship material down to Kitsault and then out into the Pacific Ocean and towards where a lot of refining of gold is done. Okay, so the Sherbet discovery. So it all started from this big exposure here that they could trace the outcropping system for about 1,000 meters up from the valley floor up to the top of the mountain. Then you go over the mountain and you see, and it continues. So it's a massive outcrop. And so then they started drilling below that outcrop. Okay, so here you can see, let me get down here a little bit better here. So here you can see some of the outcrop of the, so what you're seeing here is some quartz, and you're also seeing alteration. So when the metals bearing fluids make their way to surface and then they interact with the country rock, you get these big alteration halos. And this is a tool, when you start seeing big alteration, that's where you find mineralization, where you find where the gold bearing fluids made their way up. Okay, so now I'm going to scroll to this. So they started drilling. Here's your outcrop and then they started drilling below that, and look at all of these holes. The green ones represent the drilling in 2021. So it started out very close to the outcrop. Okay. And what I would point out about these holes is that they started to see visible gold in these green holes. And the visible gold was sort of sporadic and it was very fine grained. Okay. So then they started in 2022, they started poking holes. Now these holes are going deeper and they're going below the green holes. They're following the mineralization underneath the outcrop. And then in 2023, they had the biggest drill season. They drilled all of these blue holes. And in all of these holes, it's close to 100% of them are hitting gold mineralization. So what that tells you is that this is a big, powerful gold mineralizing system. You're going to see more of that as I scroll down here. Okay, so here they're talking about shear zones. So these are where you have cracks in the earth where the fluids can make their way up into the closer to surface. Okay. A fluid needs a conduit to make its way up. All right. So as of 2023, this was the model that they had, that you had this Sherbet horizon or zone. And I want to point out the dip of this zone is going down in this direction. And then they started to also develop this other zone called Golden Gate Shear. I would point out that they're parallel to each other and they're both going in the same direction. But then they started to see this other zone here. Okay, so you see this big zone here in purple. That's called the bonanza zone. All right, so what we're seeing in this in sherbet is that all this gold mineralization is contained within the sediments, okay? And then as you follow the gold mineralization down, you get a contact where the sediments and the volcanics are starting to be at the contact of the sediments and the volcanics. And then the Golden Gate Shear is totally in the volcanics, all right? And so what you're seeing here is a very interesting development. Up here at the top of the system, you see visible gold that is sporadic and fine grain. As you come down the system and get further down into the system, you're starting to see, especially when you get close to the sediments and the volcanics contact and into the volcanics, that you're getting abundant visible gold that is fine grained. And also now you're starting to see coarse grain gold as well as you follow it down into the system. As you get further into the system, deeper and deeper, I think what you're going to start to see next is abundant coarse grain visible gold. And that is a very exciting development to me. Okay, so here they talk about, and you know, when you got a great project, it seems to bring some really top talent to the company. Archer Cathro, SRK, Colorado School of Mines, Motherlode Consulting, Drone North, Oriented Target Solutions. These are very, very well-known and talented groups of that offer geological services to companies, and they're all flocking to this project. And here is where you start to see why. So remember earlier, I showed you that they had basically 3 zones. And now as they have more detailed modeling, what you're seeing is a series of stacked zones. You've got right here, you've got that what was formerly called the sherbet zone. You've got several of those stacked zones, and they're all going in this direction, which is parallel to this Golden Gate. But what I find really interesting is this bonanza. And why I find this so exciting is that you could be seeing, what I think you're seeing here is that sherbet and Golden Gate are likely coming off of the same source, the same heat engine down here, right? But this bonanza zone, it's going in the opposite direction. And guess what's off the page over here about 1.5 kilometers away and lower is the jackpot zone, where I showed you that gold leaf has been found in preparation to start doing drilling. Jackpot is totally in the volcanics. And if you follow those volcanics and the contact of the sediments, it leads you to that bonanza zone, which is all in the contact of the sediments and the, so you're always looking when it's in exploration for suspects as to where deeper did this gold come from. And these zones are all dipping in the same direction, and same with the Golden Gate. They're all going in this direction. But then you got this bonanza zone that's following the contact of the volcanics and the sediments way over to here. And that's where you find jackpot, where they found that gold leaf. So I'm really excited about that jackpot target. First of all, I think that you look at these, this is world class on its own. What all this tells you is you've got a very powerful gold mineralizing system that's giving you a series of stacked zones. And that's coming from somewhere deeper. But this is world class on its own right here, let alone finding where it all came from. So here you find where, and hence, look at here again here. Look at this highest grade concentration of gold. And this is coincident with the coarse grain visible gold. So you've got something that's coming in from over here, and this is the bonanza, and it's going off in this direction. So again, why I'm so excited about jackpot and the depth potential can be seen in where you're getting your highest concentration of gold in the visible. So here's some geology maps. Here is some of the great grades. Look at this, 21 grams over 23 meters, half an ounce over 26 meters, 24 grams over 11 meters, 6.37 grams over 35 meters, 12.6 over 11, 65 grams over 7.9, so close to a half a gram over 11 meters, 15.86 over grams of gold over 12 meters. Again, this is showing you that there is a big, powerful, high-grade gold mineralizing system. Now, another interesting development is that when you get this coarse and visible gold, a lot of times some of that gold can end up in the core box. Because what you do when you cut the core, first you cut the core, then you send half of that core off to the lab. You're not allowed to bias the core. So you have a predetermined where you're going to cut the core. One side goes to the lab, the other side doesn't. And a lot of times in these coarse gold systems with lots of visible gold, a lot of that gold can end up in the box, not at the lab. And so to make a difference in that, what they're going to do is what's called Chrysos is using a photon assaying method. So what they do instead is you don't even cut the core, okay? You send the entire mineralized sample into the lab. They crush that up, and then they use like X-ray to see where the gold and measure how much gold is in the entire core. So you're going to get, I think, this is just my own speculation, but I think you're going to see a kick up in the average grade, the grades that you're getting, because it's going to get all the photon assaying is going to get all the gold. And this is really important when you're in these coarse visible gold systems, is that you need to get all the gold to get a representative grade. What's exciting is that some of these great grades that they have might have been understating the actual grade, because you're not because of the way that you go about doing traditional assaying, you're not getting all the gold in that sample. Even when they cut half the core, they don't sample the entire half the core. They crush that down and they try to get a representative, smaller concentrate of that. So when you're in these core, that's fine for a disseminated gold system where you're looking at low grade, but it's well disseminated throughout. So it's not really that crucial. But when you're getting these high grade coarse visible gold systems, you need to get a representative grade, you need to test all the gold. And until Chrysos and their photon assaying came around, you were limited when it came to these high grade systems. So Goliath is going to be using that and to do their assaying. Here's some great samples. You can see the quartz and where they're finding the visible gold and the grades associated with that. Wherever they find visible gold, they get really good grades. Here's some more intersections with very good 34 grams over 5 meters, 15 grams over 11.9 meters. Okay, so here you can see the 3D modeling, and this comes from those talented geoscience groups that are working with the company. Here again, you see these stacked sheets in the sherbet in the sediments. Then you've got the contact here of the sediments, the volcanics. Here you've got Golden Gate, and again, it just keeps jumping off the page to me how these sherbet zones are all going in this direction. Golden Gate is dipping in this direction, but then Bonanza is coming from somewhere over here, based on the dip and what they're so. And what is the big source underneath here? What's the heat engine and that got where the gold comes from? And when you've got such a big system at in these zones at the top of the system, it speaks volumes about the potential of the heat engine below it. So I'm super excited to find the source of the sherbet zone in the stacked sheets in the sediments, and the Golden Gate in the volcanics all seem to be coming from here. But where is Bonanza coming from? And again, Jackpot is over here somewhere, totally in the volcanics, and that's likely the conduit is where the contact of the sediments and the volcanics are, but that's not likely coming from over here. It's coming from somewhere over here, again, where they found that jackpot, which is totally in the volcanics. And then they've got this other. So this is a different kind of system. Anybody following Snowfield or Snowline will notice that this is the kind of rock that Snowline is getting in their reduced intrusion or related gold system. And so all the gold is in these quartz that comes into this granity looking rock here. And in Snowline, they've got a whole bunch of really tiny quartz veins. Would be very thick in a reduced intrusion. Same with this. Most of them are really tiny little veinlets like down here. So this didn't look, in the past, they drilled into this kind of stuff, and it didn't really look like what they were finding at Sherbet and Bonanza. But now they're in a hurry to get this analyzed because it looks a lot like what Snowline has found in their reduced intrusion, and that's a 7 million ounce system, and it's getting bigger. Here's the more traditional looking stuff where you've got this quartz, and in the quartz you find, look at these nice sized chunks. These are not your your fine grain. Look at how coarse some of this gold is in this system. That's very exciting stuff, folks, especially when you consider it's likely coming from the very top of the system. Again, more of the coarse gold is in this, more of the visible gold. They're hitting visible gold in 66% of the holes that they've hit in their 2024 drilling. I've been in this business a long time, folks, and you don't usually see that much visible gold. the basics is that the more they drill this, the better and better it gets as they go deeper into the system. Here you can see some of the really, look at that, just like a pinhead of the visible gold. And then you look here and it's much coarser. That's what you want to see as you go deeper into the system. This is sort of what they saw at the top of the system. And now you're getting, well, they would see 1 grain. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but they see multiple grains of fine. So now you're getting abundant visible fine grain gold. And you're starting to see coarse grain gold as well. That's super exciting, folks. Here's another target that they're drilling from the Go for Gold. They got great names to their. These are the names to the drill Postman, Haymaker, VG, Golden Gate, Bonanza, Goldsmith, Cloud 9, Bullseye, Epicenter, Bang On. I love the name of those pads. And you know, they're not misnamed. They find a lot of, again, 66% of the 2024 is finding the visible gold. Okay, so remember that gold leaf from earlier. Jackpot zone. So you can see a structure coming down. I think the sample for that had that gold leaf is somewhere up in here. But they sampled down in here. And look at, you're getting lots of high grade gold for a surface sample to be getting 6 grams, 6 grams, 6 grams, almost 2 grams, almost 5 grams, 44 grams. And then up here, you're seeing gold leaf, coarse gold up here, all in the surface sampling. And if you follow this structure, it leads you towards Bonanza. I think this could be the source of Bonanza, but of course you need drilling to prove that, which is about to happen. Treasure Island is a great target. What excites me about Treasure Island, I'm going to get down to it. It's 36 kilometers from Sherbet to the northern end of their claims. But here you see the outcrop. And in this outcrop, you've got a very big mineralized system here, which looks like a volcanogenic massive sulfide, which is VMS. Anytime I hear VMS in British Columbia in the Golden Triangle, I get excited because Eskay Creek, it was a VMS, and at its time when it was in production, it was one of the highest grade. It was the highest grade gold silver mine anywhere in the world. Came from a VMS. They've drilled 4 holes. This is sort of their initial stab at it. They found massive sulfides in the drilling, and I'm looking forward to that, and also the geophysics, because here you can see the massive sulfide. This is right at surface, folks. Massive sulfide, massive sulfides. And so geophysics will pick this up nicely. So they wanted to get a few holes into this. I think the total is going to be 8 to 10. And yeah, that's a great target. I'm really excited about this target. I love hearing about VMS and here you can see native copper right there. That's oxidized copper there, folks. Alteration, more mineralization, more copper, oxidized copper right at the surface. Yeah, this is an exciting target. Look at the copper running through there. Look at all this massive sulfides from a channel cut. This is all at the surface, folks. Here's more massive sulfides. Here they're showing you about the infrastructure, Kitsalt. You got deep water access down through here, following the barge. Take the barges down to the ocean, and away you go for processing. Okay, so I had planned on doing three companies in this report, but I got a little stoked about, oh, this is a porphyry target that they have called Lucky Strike. Uh, I mean, in a general sense, I'm going to go back up to the top, and I hope you can see that gold leaf from Jackpot because this gets me super excited. Uh, let's see, there it is. Look at that, folks. I know that Roger Rasmus took this actual sample for his meetings at Beaver Creek last week, and I think a few people got excited and cut some checks. But okay, so I'm going to sort of wrap it up here. And most well-known camps have seen extensive exploration for 400 years. They've been researched to the nth degree by geoscientists. So why is Goliath coming into a well-known jurisdiction that's been known for a couple hundred years? And why are they making brand new discoveries, grassroots discoveries? Grassroots discoveries are hard to find because most of the major camps throughout the world have been picked over for 400 years. And the reason is that until recently, probably in the last few decades, this area, or not even the last decade, this area of the Golden Triangle was covered by glaciers and also permanent snowpack. So as those have receded, it opens up the rock for geologists to see. And so you've got a prolific mining camp that no geologist had ever seen it until about 5 to 7 years ago. And the team at Goliath were flying over it, and they could see these massive mineralized systems just popping out of the ground. And normally, if you were in Nevada or you were in Mexico or you were in South Africa or Australia, these things would have been peppered with drill holes. They had never seen any drill holes because of the glaciers and the permanent snowpack. So I got to tell you, the team at Goliath, when they start seeing this, they saw how important what they had found was, and they got right to work and and have had a few seasons of just discovery after discovery after discovery. Look, this is the fourth drill season that they've been in, and this sample you're seeing on your screen right now has was just found like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and it's right at the jackpot zone target, and they were just preparing the area for drilling, and look what they find. Things like this would have been found if it was not covered by snowpack and glaciers. And the team is just spectacular. The geological team that Goliath has put together is extremely talented. These guys can do sampling from off the side of a cliff. They got their rappelling mountain climbing guys. And when they see something, they spot it right away. This is a look at this sample was taken just like 2 weeks ago. Sherbet and Goliath. Goliath is my highest conviction gold discovery company because of what they found with their drilling and what I see based on my experience of 30 years as an exploration guide. I'm seeing things that I've never seen before being done by this company. And it all goes back to something that my mentor in geology told me something a long time ago. He said, Allan, all projects start out with big targets. Either they're big geochemical anomalies, or they're big outcrops, or they're big, geophysical anomalies. But then when you put holes into them, drill holes, the truth machine, they get smaller and smaller and smaller. But the mines that are different, when you do more drilling and you throw more science at it, they get better and better and better. And that's exactly what's happened with Goliath. I've written a lot about Goliath. You can find it on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. You can find it in the interviews I've done with the management. But I don't lightly make the statement that this company is my highest conviction gold discovery company lightly. I think that they're onto something truly spectacular. And again, I originally started out this video planning to talk about a few companies, but because I got so wrapped up into Goliath, they are going to be the only one in this show today. But don't worry, folks, I'm going to do some more of these because I can write about projects, but explaining all this stuff in pictures is much more impactful. So I'm going to be doing more of these exploration updates or discovery and explorer updates, exploration updates, not just with the juniors, also with the developers. I'm going to do a series of these. So say hello to my new thing, which is to do some of these updates so I can use video and pictures to show you what I'm talking about. So on that note, I am biased. I want my opinions to be correct. That's my biggest bias, but I'm also a shareholder in Goliath. You need to know about that bias. So do your own homework. Speak with your financial advisors. Talk to people that you know in this business. And go to the company's website. Do your own. I only want to be sort of an idea generator where I use my 30 years of experience and having fantastic mentors to help you find companies to do your homework on, to make your own decisions about whether you want to invest in them or not. So do that homework, please. Understand my biases, and have a great day. And we will talk to you soon.